Hi! Okay, so for this video, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I've always been a big fan of music, and music has just always been a big part of my life. I'm a musical person, my family's musical. I play like 3 instruments, well, kind of 2 instruments, but 3, we'll just say 3 instruments to make me look powerful. Anyway, so as I said, I've always loved music. And I think my taste in music is relatively broad. There is a couple stuff out there that I don't like heavy metal and country music. That's where I draw the line. I don't like those 2 genres at all. I was kind of inspired to make this video by this girl on TikTok. I think her username is something like I can't remember her username. I'll put her username and her page up on the screen. A series of hers that I really like is her rating albums, so I was just inspired by her. So I went into my Instagram story and I put the little question sticker there, and I basically asked my followers for album recommendations or song recommendations. I think I had about 34 album recommendations, and obviously I couldn't do all of them because that would make the video like half an hour long. So if you recommended something, thank you so much. I read all of them. I sound like such an influencer now. If you did recommend something and I didn't put it in this video, I'm really sorry. Maybe I'll do a part 2 in the future and then I'll pick your recommendation. Okay, so the first album is called Dreamland by Glass Animals. And I'd actually listened to like 1 or 2 of their songs before I actually got this recommendation. And I really like those songs, but when I listened to the album, I'm obsessed. I love this album. I feel like there are little to no skips. It's very alternative, very different kind of music. Yeah, it's a very different sound. My favorite tracks from this album were Dreamland, Space Ghost to Coast, Heat Waves, and Helium. I think overall I would give this album an 8 out of 10. Okay, so the next album is called 5 AM by Amber Run. I am not the biggest Amber Run fan. A couple of my friends really like them, but their music isn't really my style, isn't really my vibe. My favorite tracks on this album were I Found and Noah. I gave this album a 6 out of 10. The next album is Don't Smile at Me by Billie Eilish, which is her first studio album. I really like this album. I mean, if you think about it, most of these songs she wrote when she was like, what, 13, 14 years old. Maybe there's only 2 songs that I would skip, but the rest are all bops and I really like them. My favorite tracks from this album were I Don't Want to Be You Anymore, My Boy, and Ocean Eyes. Overall, I gave this album an 8 out of 10 as well. The next album is called Life's Journey by Charlie Finch. Charlie Finch is actually sort of a family friend of ours, of my family. His music is like pretty cool. Again, his music isn't exactly my style, it isn't exactly my kind of vibe. I still really enjoy his music, like it's a bop. So my favorite tracks from this album were Into the Woods and Don't Lose Yourself, and overall I gave this album a 7 out of 10. Next album is Fine Line by Harry Styles. This was recommended to me like so many times. I think maybe 4 or 5 people recommended this to me. I love this album and I love Harry Styles. I really like his music. And I really like him as a person. I think he's a very good person to look up to. It was a really good album. I mean, all the songs in there are pretty good. Maybe there was 1 skip, but I think the rest of the songs were pretty good. My favorite tracks from this album were Golden, Adore You, Lights Up, and Falling. I think most people can relate to that. Falling. The music video was pure art. Can we all just concur? My original rating was an 8 out of 10, but now I listened to it the other day again and I really enjoyed it. So I want to up my rating to an 8.59 out of 10. Next album is genuinely one of my favorite albums that I've ever listened to. Control by SZA. I believe that there are no skips on this album. Her voice is just beautiful. The way she puts together lyrics and themes and melody, it's just beautiful. I loved it. My favorite tracks were Love Galore, Supermodel, Drew Barrymore, Go Gina, and The Weeknd. And I would give this album a solid 10 out of 10. I really loved it. Next is Divide by Ed Sheeran, and I'm just gonna start off with an unpopular opinion. I don't like Ed Sheeran. I'm not a big fan of his voice, not a big fan of his music. But yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of this album as a whole. I feel like a lot of the songs kind of sounded pretty similar, but I did have a favorite track, which was Castle on a Hill. Yeah, I gave this album a 6. The next album is called The Wild Youth by Daughter, and this album, when I first looked at it, it was very unique. There's only 4 tracks. I think each track kind of told a story, but they weren't very memorable. My favorite track was, I think, the first one called Home. Yeah, no, it wasn't my vibe. It didn't stand out to me and didn't have that special element, and I gave this album a 5. The next album is called Toxicity by System of a Dawn. I can genuinely say that I hated this album. Yeah, there wasn't even a favorite track of mine. Like, I really did not like the song. And I'm sorry to the person who recommended this to me. I gave it a 2 out of 10. The next album is another, like, personal favorite of mine. One that I absolutely love. And that's Sweetener by Ariana Grande. I just absolutely loved it. I love how she brings the themes to life. Like, all the songs kind of have a storyline. I feel like they're all unique in their own way, if you know what I mean. And guys, in my opinion, this album gave us one of the best songs. Okay, please don't attack me on this because this is my opinion and we're all allowed to have an opinion. I genuinely think that No Tears Left to Cry is one of the best songs ever. The imagery for this album, the music videos, oh, I just loved it. I loved it. I feel like most of the tracks on this album are literally a favorite of mine, but I did choose a few. But my favorite tracks are God Is a Woman, No Tears Left to Cry, Breathing, Better Off, and Get Well Soon. I also gave this album a 10 out of 10, and like, it deserves nothing less. The next album is called The Slow Rush by Tame Impala. The music is very alternative and different and unique. You know, it's just interesting. I loved it. My favorite tracks of this album were Borderline, Lost in Yesterday, and Is It True? And I will give this album an 8 out of 10. The next album is called Light of Mine by Kyle. It wasn't my kind of jam, but I did enjoy listening to it. Like, it wasn't bad. My favorite tracks off of it were Playin' With Me and I Spy. And I gave this album a 6 out of 10. Next is 4 by One Direction, and funny enough, this album actually really was a part of my childhood. Like, when I was younger, I was on and off One Direction fan. My sister and Amy and Gemma were all big One Direction fans, and actually in 2015 we went to Joburg and watched a One Direction concert. Yeah, I feel like the songs in this album were like really iconic. Like, it's like the iconic One Direction sound. My favorite tracks off of it were Steal My Girl, Night Changes, and Fireproof, and I gave this album a 7 out of 10. The next album, or albums, is I don't even know how to pronounce this. I think it's the Jessie. I just wrote here, the Jessie series by Jacob Collier. The Jessie Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3. And for the sake of this video, I just did Volume 3. I don't know, guys. His music is very weird, very alternative, very different. Yeah, I struggled to enjoy this album, I'm not even gonna lie to you. But I did have a favorite track, and that was In Too Deep. And I gave this album a 5 out of 10. The next album is called Sempriternal by Bring Me to the Horizon. Again, it wasn't exactly my style. It bordered too much on rock. My favorite track of this was Can You Feel My Heart? I gave that album a solid 6 out of 10. Okay, so that's all the albums that were recommended to me. And then I just included a few songs just on their own. The first song is called Becca by the Sookies. It's a style of music that I really like. I like this kind of beat, this kind of vibe. It's very... The only word I can think of to describe it is indie. I gave this one a 7 out of 10. The next song is Achilles Come Down by Gang of Youths. I have mixed feelings about this song. I did give it a 7 out of 10, which is a pretty good rating. But it wasn't necessarily my kind of music. The reason I gave it the rating I did is because I really enjoyed the strings in it. Like the cello and the violin were just, I loved them. The next song is called Good Listener by Warmer Heights. And I actually know this guy. We went on a camp together a while ago, and he's a really cool guy. The vibe is so there, and it's like it's a style of music that I really enjoy, and I really would go out of my way to listen to. It's very up my alley. I really enjoyed the music and the lyrics, so good job on that. I gave this song an 8 out of 10. And the last song that I reviewed is Sweater Weather by The Neighborhood. It's a very popular song, and therefore I feel like it's overplayed. I feel like if it wasn't so overplayed, I would be like, wow, this song's really cool. So yeah, I I gave this song a 6 out of 10. Okay, well, that is the end of rating all the songs and albums. I'm not gonna lie, I really liked this. It gave me a lot of new music to like listen to and enjoy. I hope that everyone remembers and understands that these are like my personal opinions and my personal preferences, and no one's the same, no one has the same music taste. So if I did not like an album or song that you recommended or that you may like, I'm sorry. I actually decided to make a playlist of all my favorite songs out of everything. So if anybody has Apple Music, you can just search my name. It's Brennan Stroud with a space underneath and no capitals. Anyways, hope you guys have a good week and a good day.